Hello, gentles and ladymen. I'm Ulan Gaming, and I am joined once again by Dap. How's it going?
Hello.
And you're joining me here on the second longest tier list, when your previous one that you only the only other tier list that you previously joined me for was the longest one.
Yep.
You brought this on yourself.
Yeah.
Today we're doing
getting me from.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna. You're getting me from my expert 50-50 win percentage opinion on all these game mechanics.
Today we're doing the heavy infantry tier list. Yeah, I think that's about it. So let's get into it. Yeah.
Okay, we go in order. Or are we just gonna pick one out?
We'll just pick them out. I don't think there's any particular
order.
order.
Let's just surprise the audience here.
Yeah, let's surprise the audience by putting Ashigaru in S tier.
Yeah. Japan's just busted, and these guys are busted too. They're really good stats, even for their increased cost. They've got 4.5 speeds, so they'll just beat skirms because they can chase them down. They're just really strong.
Yeah, Ashigaru are the second fastest musketeer in the game. They are just ludicrously good because of that speed. They also have boosted stats, which is enough to put which is really nice just anyways. But they also have just as many cards and upgrades for those boosted stats, so they end up just becoming just ludicrously good.
Yep. Plus extra stats from the buff from your hero units.
Yeah,
they can get daimyos. Their daimyo can also just give birth to 10 of them on demand.
They can get a total of 4 different aura boosts at the same time. One from the daimyo, one from the shogun, one from the golden pavilion, and one from the consulate.
Yeah, just a little bit salty about Japan, but they're S tier. They're a very good. They're maybe gonna stay at the top of the tier list here. We'll see.
We'll see.
They're pretty good.
Okay, now let's talk about something average, something middle of the pack, something like the Italy musketeer, top of B tier.
Okay.
Now, Italy musketeers are not the greatest of musketeers. I'd say they're on the lower end of musketeers, but musketeers themselves are on the higher end of heavy infantry tier list, and the fact that it's heavy infantry that counters cavalry and melee just like most other heavy infantry, but then it also has a range attack. You can't put it any less than the top of B tier.
Yeah.
That's where most of the musketeers are going to be.
What do Italian musketeers even get? You can get Schiavone Steel.
Yeah, they have
their melee attack,
a melee attack boost, and then they have a range attack boost or a range hit point boost, something like that.
No one ever uses red shirts, though. It's kind of Age 4 cards are kind of hard to justify in your deck. So
they have an Age 2 card, I think, that boosts them.
It's like a generic upgrade card.
Yeah, it's a generic upgrade card that boosts ranged infantry, I think.
Okay, so not the best. I actually do like making musketeers a lot as Italy. I think Italy has a pretty strong eco. Musketeers are nice, well-rounded units. You can pump out a lot of these.
Exactly.
If you're bombard booming or something. I think they're pretty good. It's mostly just Italy that makes them good and not like the musketeers themselves, though.
Yeah, exactly. They are nothing special. They have probably one of the smallest amount of upgrades of any musketeer. And they don't start out with anything special in the stat department like this much better musketeer the regular does, for example, who I will also be putting in the S tier.
Oh, really?
Now,
that high?
Yes, and the reason is because the regular pairs extremely well with the Gatling gun. Because USA has the Gatling gun, which are really, really fucking good. And I take unit compositions and other units that you can pair something with when I consider a unit to be a unit's placement. But also, regular stats, when they're fully carded out and upgraded out, are actually very, very close to the British Musketeer. They're not quite there, but they're but they're very close. They're only like a couple stats off. They have higher base attack at 25 instead of 23, and then they have higher base range at 14 instead of 12. So these guys are pretty much good in every single age, and it's not uncommon for you to get Springfield Armory as USA either, so they hit a pretty big power spike once you get to age 3, you get their veterancy and send their card in.
Yeah. They are a lot more coin heavy though. They're a lot harder to mass.
They are a little bit more expensive. But I think USA like doesn't have much of an issue gathering lots of coins, so.
Yeah, I definitely have them below Ashigaru. We've already got that. I just feel like they're not on the same level. Like I would put them A tier at the very most.
Okay. For now, we'll put them in the A tier.
Yeah, there's just to me, these units don't even like register in the same level at all. Like I'm not as scared as regulars as I am of Ashigaru, even remotely.
Well, because I was going to put the British Musketeer also in S tier, and I consider the British Musketeer and the regulars to be at about the same level. Is the reason why.
Really? Yeah. Well, it does get the Royal Guard upgrades, but that is kind of a hassle in a way because they're more expensive upgrades. So.
Yeah, I generally prefer not having the Royal Guard upgrades on my units.
I don't know. Maybe put an A above the regular for right now, just above the regular.
Well, the S tier is not going to be very big, just across the board, and
we might end up, depending on how the list looks, we might end up moving.
Yeah. For now, I will put
the
British Musketeer in S, just because they have a ludicrous amount of upgrades. They have the Royal Guard. They have 3 combat cards. They pair with an S-class artillery unit in the form of rockets. You know, there's so many good things about. They also pair with a really good Hussar in the form of King's Lifeguard Hussar that are also fully carded, so I can't justify putting the British Musketeer in anything less than S tier.
Brits are just a really good civ. I don't know, man. They just do a lot of stuff really well. It's like
keeping that in mind,
as ridiculous as Japan.
Keeping that in mind, I guess I will put the regulars at the top of A, just because the British Musketeer pairs with both the Rocket and the Royal Guard carded Huss. USA only pairs with the Gatling gun because their Hussar are nothing special. Their Hussar are just slightly cheaper than everybody else's. That's it.
All right, what else we got here?
Let's do all the Musketeer types first. I think it's a good way.
Okay, let's just blow through these quick. Portuguese.
Kind of good. Where are they? Here they are. Portuguese Musketeers are pretty good, and most of the Musketeers are going to be like A tier, I think, just because Musketeers are just that good as a class. But Portugal has pretty good Musketeers, specifically because all of their combat cards that affect the Musketeer also affect the Cazador, so you can get like a really good pike bow thing going.
They have a lot of ranged infantry upgrades. They also get the Royal Guard Legionarios.
Yeah,
for their Musketeers.
They also have a Royal Guard unit. That's right.
They have the Logistician Age Up Age 2, which I believe gives some boost to their ranged infantry, I believe. But no, I don't think people really pick it that much.
It doesn't boost ranged infantry. It makes town centers able to train units.
Yeah, I know it does that. I thought it did something else too.
I don't think it does anything else. Pound for pound, Portugal Musketeers are almost exactly the same as Brits. They have almost the same level of upgradability. The big issue is that they don't have as many good things to pair their Musketeer with. So they have a really strong Musketeer, but nothing really to pair it with.
Yeah. They just don't have as many HP upgrades either. Brits have a lot of...
they have Thin Red Line, which is something that Portugal doesn't have. But Brits don't really use that much anyways. So.
Yeah, Thin Red Line I would not use. Just 3 speed is awful.
Yeah.
But it's an option.
Yeah. They're an A tier for sure, I think. They're not as good as the regular because regulars pair so well, but like...
Yeah, I think they're pretty solid.
Alright, the Ruskets. I don't like the Ruskets. I don't like Ruskets.
So, they're good. They're actually very good. But what you have to do is you just need to mass a lot of them first. Because like, if you're just popping these out of a blockhouse, like 5 at a time to fend off an attack, they're just going to get creamed because their stats are so much worse. But if you can like sit back and just get a huge ball of these, and they'll just use that cost effectiveness to their advantage. They're just a very efficient unit. I don't think Russia gets all that many upgrades for them, but they're cheap.
I always find like the funniest thing about them is that when Russia gets their Age 3 upgrade, their veterancy upgrade. Their Ruskets have the same stats as normal age 2 musketeers.
Mm-hmm. But you'll have way more of them.
Yeah, that's true.
One thing to note, though, is that you actually can't get your batch out quite as fast as other civilizations sometimes, because you can't just train one musket and get that like loading on the queue and then add more to it. You have to have the full amount of resources before you can start the train.
One of my biggest it's one of my biggest gripes with China's banner army system, except worse, except better, because with China's banner army, at least you get all, except with Russia, at least you get all of one unit. With China's banner armies, you can't be like, oh fuck, I need a lot of skirms. Just
also
work.
Russia has units that don't require that, and they're smaller batches too. It's not like you're training 7 or 6 units at a time with it.
Although they do have one for time.
Yeah. I like Ruskets. Yeah, they're okay.
Yeah, I've personally never been a fan of them, but I do understand that they are a good unit, and there's a reason for that. I think they go to B tier. Yeah, B tier. I think
Russia is not an overwhelmingly great civ at this moment, but I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah, they got some good stuff going for them for sure. All right, now let's talk about the Spanish musketeer.
These are serviceable. I think they're great.
You can make a lot of them in Age 2.
You can make a lot of them
just through the use of the logistician, and you can make a lot of them rather quickly. And they got a lot of stuff going for them.
I think Spain doesn't have a lot of upgrade cards for them is the issue.
Yeah,
they kind of have to rely on unction, and if you get unction, that kind of benefits everything.
Yes, exactly.
So I think probably below the Italian musketeer.
Okay, well, just because they have Unction, I think puts them above the Italian Musketeer, because Unction is a card that you're going to get for everything in pretty much every Spain build.
That's true.
I put top
late
of B
game
tier
they're better, but they do have less. Yeah, that's fair.
They have a because you can make a lot of these really quickly for a rush, and it can be overwhelming. As we said before on previous tier lists, the strength of Spanish units is that Spain has lots of different units, not necessarily that they have one unit that's ridiculously good.
Another thing to note is that Spain can't actually ship musketeers. Their home city doesn't have any musketeer shipments.
Right, it just has pikes and Rodoleros,
rods and like crossbowmen and such. So. That holds them back a little bit, but I think they're still a pretty average unit.
Yeah, they're a very serviceable musketeer,
I think France is actually the same way, where French musketeers, there are no home city shipments for them.
Yeah, the French musketeers are pretty much exactly the same.
And yeah, I put them right next to, because these are good. You do want to make these guys as France sometimes. I think French just does everything well, but they're nothing to write home about, really.
Yeah.
They're not really as all-star as their cavalry lineup, so...
Yeah, exactly.
But very solid unit. You got the French economy behind it. They've got some good upgrade cards. And Musketeers are just a good unit. They're just like the baseline of game balance, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
They're so ubiquitous.
Alright, let's talk about the Sepoy next, S tier, without a doubt.
Yeah, these guys are pretty good.
Sepoy have the highest baseline stats of any per population of any musketeer in the game. They do cost 120 resources. They cost 90 food and 30 coin, but it's not that bad.
More expensive.
It's not that bad because India doesn't have to share some of its food to make settlers, and as soon as you have your first 2 shipments in, you have enough wood trickle to just make settlers by itself. So really, you can just focus your entire economy on making these guys, and you'll never have issues massing them.
They're great. They're really good. I think maybe late game they fall off. I'm not like an expert on this. But early game, I know they're great. They can just snipe bills like no one's business.
Sepoy have like the base stat of veteran musketeers practically. They have the same HP and a little bit less attack, and so they scale really hard from their normal upgrades. But in exchange, they don't really have very many upgrades other than that. They get an HP boost from the British consulate, and then they can get the Mansabdar once you age up with the Tolminar Gate. So they can be the Mansabdar is of course a 10% aura boost. which means that it scales off their current stats instead of their base. So they actually basically have the equivalent of like a 15-20% combat card in the form of the Mansabdar, which makes them pretty good. People say they fall off in the late game, but they still have just a shit ton of stats.
Yeah,
and
India in general just falls off in like a treaty-style game because they're just not built for it.
Yeah, they have a shit ton of stats, and even in the late game, these guys will be kicking ass. They probably won't be British musketeer or Ashigaru levels, but they are strong in every single age.
Yep, great unit. This is why no one ever makes Rajputs.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because there's just nothing that can do that a Sepoy can't do better.
Exactly. They also are the best musketeers versus cavalry. They have a very high hand attack at 15, one of the highest among musketeers, but they still maintain a 3 times multiplier instead of a 2 times, so they do 45 damage, which is more than a pikeman. So yeah, Sepoy are just really good. Okay, let's talk about some less than average musketeers right now. Let's talk about the gunslinger from USA.
These guys are all right.
Yeah, they're okay.
If you're going outlaws, though, unless you're wanting to really invest in outlaws, or you're going for some like Boston Tea Party, like Quicksilver Mine nonsense in Age 2, just make a ton of outlaws.
The thing is, even if you do make outlaws, you're gonna be making cowboys and what you're gonna be making cowboys and and Alhoots, because that's your Skirm Goon combo. There's no outlaw that USA gets access to that combos with the gunslinger at all.
These guys do have siege, though. If you're wanting to make outlaws, they have more siege than the other two. But
even then, the Alhoots, they only have 2 more siege than the Alhoot, believe it or not. Alhoot's a pretty good siege.
Are a big improvement on the, what's it called, the Pistolero, but the Pistolero sucks, so...
Yeah. And then the Desperado is
right, they're the same unit.
They are the exact same unit. I don't know why they have 2 different portraits. They have...
Put the Desperado above the Cowboy because it's more fashionable, actually.
Fair enough. We gotta rate their fashion.
He has 2 guns.
But not only do they have the same HP, attack, and attack speed, they also have the exact same charge attack, which can't be said about the other 2.
Yep.
So...
You know what? If I think about those terms, I've used Desperados more, and I think they're a pretty solid unit, actually, but I don't know. It's still not really...
Even awesome then, though, you don't make Desperados, you make filibusters.
Yeah, but that's only if you're going Baja.
Yeah, that's true. Which, if you're not going Baja, what are you doing making outlaws?
Mexico also, they're a skirmisher type cowboy isn't as good as the Alhoot, so he kind of encourages you to make these guys more. All right.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. Yeah.
Wait, why do you have the Quattrero on this list? What's he doing here?
He snuck in.
Get him at that. No good varmint. Get him out of here.
I can't. He's just a bystander. He wants to watch the tier list.
Yeah.
He's one of my viewers.
Just such a bad heavy infantry unit.
He's one of my he's one of my viewers. I swear to God, if my next subscriber isn't named Quattrero, you know.
Yeah. Alrighty. Then.
Somebody renamed their YouTube account to Quattrero.
Jeremy Quattrero.
Jeremy Quattrero. Oh, alrighty. It's so good.
Who else we got here?
In terms of the musketeer types, let's talk.
Yeah, let's go through all the muskets.
Yeah, let's talk about the Akan. Akan are really good.
Akan, yep. These guys are very solid.
The Akan, the Akan are A tier, mostly because they have area of effect on their attack, like the Giant Grenadier. So pretty much right from the get-go, they can fight skirms. It's ridiculous. Their damage output is insane.
Yeah, these are incredibly solid. You can get them as both a native unit and as a regular unit.
Well, yeah.
Hausa,
specifically, we are talking about them as a regularly trainable unit from Hausa. The big issue is that Hausa doesn't really have a whole lot of upgrades for them, if I'm not mistaken.
They have Sahelian Kingdom.
Which does what?
Makes outlaws and natives better, and maybe mercenaries. I don't know, I'd have to look at the exact wording, but think it's like a 15 attacking HP, possibly.
Okay, that's pretty decent.
Don't quote me on that.
That's pretty decent.
But it is a good card just because all those units shadow tech for Hausa, so...
Yeah, there's the shadow teching involved. They're not... I'd say they pair better with units than Portugal musketeers do, just because they have the heavy cavalry that they can pair it with. You know, they don't necessarily have a whole lot of artillery. But just because of that pairing, I think it actually beats out all of the upgrades that Portugal has.
Hausa does have artillery, honestly. They've got a really good access to artillery, just because they've got so much more influence than Ethiopia can get.
That is true, but it is just so pricey in influence. It's just so pricey.
Yep. These are really good units. They don't have a lot of upgrades as the game goes on, but they fill in a pretty good slot. Hausa doesn't have another musketeer unit. One thing to note is that you do need to send that initial shipment before you can start training these guys.
Yeah.
Which isn't the end of the world, because that's a pretty good card, but I believe it gives you like a pop of them too.
The Econ are very, very good. That's the moral of the story. Now to talk about somebody who's not very, very good, the Bolus Warrior for Inca.
What? These guys are great, honestly.
They did fix their firing animation, which improves them a lot, and I definitely... Yeah, they're definitely, like, solid now.
Oh, no. These units used to be one of the worst units in the game, I think.
They were 2 pop, and then they also had, like, horrible stats, no melee multipliers against Cav, and then...
It took them, like, 5 seconds to throw their little bolas.
Yeah, exactly.
Now they can kite, they counter all cavalry, they go really well with the Hurakas. Like, before, Inca always made Warhack units,
but they did go really well with the Hurakas, but now nobody makes Hurakas anymore.
I mean, yeah, they're still... I've seen Hurakas, you know? And, like, these still pair really well with Jungle Bowmen. I think, Inca's not in a good place right now, but these are still a really good unit, I feel.
We'll put them in B tier.
Because they snare... Now they can kite and snare from range as well, so...
Yeah, well, they've always been able to do that.
Yeah, but they haven't been able to kite.
Yeah, that's true.
Doing both of those things is pretty deadly.
Okay, yeah, we'll put them in B for now, I guess. I was gonna put them in C, but if you play more Inca than I do, if you say they're B, then we'll put them in B. No, if you say higher,
I mean, it happened in a while, but I still feel like these guys got a real glow up in the like November patch or whenever it was.
All right, the Gascanya. These guys are like glass cannons of musketeers. They got not very many hit points, quite a bit of attack, and they have a good movement speed, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it was at 4.25.
Yeah, good movements. I think that sounds about right.
I can check on my Age of Empires companion app. While you talk.
Oh yeah, I can check this stuff too. What are we doing guessing? But yeah, these guys for some reason they had 14 range on release. They can like throw a spear further than most people can shoot a gun. That didn't really make any sense. They got rid of that. But these guys have great stats. They're pretty cheap. You can afford the wood just by selling cattle and collecting crates. And so you can just really pump these guys out.
Oh, it's 4.5 speed.
They've got some really good... they've got a really good melee attack. Like much better than the average musketeer. It's kind of like a halfway between a musketeer and a spearman almost. They're honestly really, really solid.
So they have the same speed as the Ashigaru musketeer. But the difference is you don't hear people bitching about the Gascanya the same way people bitch about the Ashigaru musketeer, because the Ashigaru musketeer... Anyway. Because the Ashigaru musketeer... is just an absolute fucking tank. You know, well, the Gascanya is a glass cannon. The Ashigaru is a cannon.
Yep.
And
it was probably better though.
But... And just Ashigaru has an insane amount of upgradability to it, so you just don't hear anybody complain about the Gascanya anywhere as much as you do the Ashigaru. I'm gonna put him in the A tier though. Not
A tier for sure.
Right here, I think is good.
I cannot find them on this app, but they also, one thing to note is that as they get closer, they have that kind of
higher, faster
African
rate
mechanic as they start throwing faster.
Such a weird, like obscure, not obscure, but like not well not well told and understood mechanic.
It's strange. It's just hard to really quantify how much of a bonus it gives you because it's like your attack speed's constantly changing. So
exactly, it's so weird. I don't like it.
But it's good in practice. They'll shred if you can just get them in close but keep them out of range. It rewards good micro.
Yeah, that's true. Alright, let's see here. What's next in the musketeers? We have the Carolean and the Janissary. Let's do the Janissary. Janissaries, low attack. They have 19 attack, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Which is...
I don't know why I said yep so confidently. I actually have no idea. They have 20 ranged attack according to this.
Okay, 20 attack then. Yeah, oh yeah, that's right, because I remember from the deflection ability testing. So they have 3 less attack, but they also have 60 more HP at base.
Yeah, these guys are so tanky. It's crazy.
They're ridiculously tanky, and they have a 20% combat card, if I'm not mistaken. Which is in the form of Janissary Combat, which is just a super good card. Janissaries are just really good. They scale pretty well into the end game. They pair well with the Obus and they pair well with the Obus. You can afford them because you don't have to pay food for settlers. You know, they got everything going for them. Their one crippling weakness is that they just don't beat the other S tier musketeers.
Yeah, they just...
they're good.
They're able to keep up. They're a really good unit. They're super good in H2. They back up your Abus.
A really good unit. They just don't keep up with Sepoy, Ashigaru, and British musketeers.
They've got the 20% Janissary combat card, like you said, and then in H4 you've got a card that decreases their cost to train by an amount that can only be determined by rolling chicken bones. It doesn't tell me how much it decreases the cost, so...
Sepoy are able to just beat them in H2, just without any upgrades.
They're not really the best, but they're above average.
For sure. I'll put them next to the Icon. I think that's about the same.
I'd put them below Gascanya, honestly.
Really? Right here?
Yeah. I think they're better than most Euro Musk, but...
Okay. I'll put them right here, because I think they're tanky enough that they'd be able to fight the Gascanya super well.
Yeah, okay.
Because they got almost 100 HP on the Gascanya.
Yeah, they are very tanky. That's true.
Janissaries are somewhat overshadowed by the fact that if Ottoman want to, they can just monocomp all those guns and get away with it, but you know. Okay, the Carolean. So, a Sepoy is a musketeer that is like stupid good in Age 2 and has significantly less like upgradability when it comes to other things. When it comes to other things, the Carolean is not very good in Age 2. They have a very high melee attack, and I think a lot of Sweden players kind of forget this, and they don't abuse the charge to just run into other musketeers as fast, and so they lose in shootouts. But then as you go up, it's kind of like the opposite of the Sepoy, where as you go up, they go from being one of the worst musketeers into a shootout into literally beating skirms.
Yeah, they've got a lot of crazy upgrade cards. They get the Snap Lock, the Sophia Lifeguard that gives them ranged resist instead of melee.
They counter cavalry from range, which you would think means instead of melee, which you would think means that you just get into melee with the cavalry, but it doesn't really work that way because they still have a good melee attack, and then all of the ones behind them are still able to shoot you. So in the end, you're still taking more counter damage.
Yep. You can only really fight these with cav in small numbers, where they can't just blind fire you, but these are a great unit.
They are ridiculously good. I think
they've been nerfed a bunch.
They're
still...
Sweden has a shit ton of good cavalry cards to go with them, and they have lots of artillery even in the second age like the rest here.
Sweden just has a lot of cool tools to help out their units. Okay.
And even better, one of Sweden's combat cards for them is a Team Heavy Infantry hit point card, which is a really good upgrade card. Just because everybody uses heavy infantry, you know?
Yep, almost through the musketeers.
Almost through the musketeers. The Nizams. B-tier.
Yeah.
Now,
these
in
guys
terms...
are kind of hard to judge.
In terms of stats, these guys are S tier. right?
Yep.
They have
counter
ridiculously high
skirms.
stats, and they have multipliers against everything. Even skirms they fight well against because they're multipliers against infantry.
I think it's just heavy infantry.
No, it's infantry.
I will check that right now.
But in terms of availability, the Nizam is D tier.
So you have to spend, I believe, 2,500 wood of all things to start getting these guys, and even then you can't train them normally. So
I'm going to put them in the B tier because they are a serviceable unit that you can absolutely lean into if you want.
Yeah, to their credit, it is all infantry. Hot dang! But to their credit, people still do make these things. People still do go out of their way to just go full on Nizam Fusilier in their strategies. So I think that kind of speaks to how good they actually are.
The big problem is like you said, like you and I said earlier, is their availability. Is their stats are so good, but if you lose them, you ain't getting them back. You get them once you run out of Janissary shipments, then you're out of Nizams, and there's pretty much no way to get them back. They're very short term, and your mass is very, very fragile because of that.
You can train them from forts with the Egypt revolt, but that's kind of that's not very practical, honestly.
That's not practical at all.
But awesome unit. This was like the OG super gimmicky unit in DE. They just counter just about everything. They've got the Carolean charge. They're incredibly just versatile, strong units.
Mm-hmm. Now the Maigadi is worse. The Maigadi, now granted, the Maigadi has much better availability. The big issue is that they cost influence, and they have a card that can split the cost between influence and coin, which is really, really nice. They have really high stats, and they can get a multiplier against cavalry after a certain card, and they have multipliers against mercenaries, which is pretty cool.
It's like a spy almost.
They're still B tier, and if you want to lean into Maigadi as Hausa, just go for it. Fuck, I'm not gonna say no to having a Maigadi mass next to my army.
They're kind of hard to mass though. I hardly ever see people make these, honestly.
I rarely do. They are, but yeah, you can lean into them if you want, and I'm hoping that people do. But
they're good. They're very upgradable. They're almost like a what do you call it? A Zouave, where they have just no multipliers, but very good stats across the board.
Unlike a Zouave or a Marine, though, they do have the heavy infantry tag.
Yeah, so that's a big point against them. They've got lots of melee attack, but no modifier against Cav, so
which they do get with a guard.
I just think these guys are funny because every single one of their attacks is 36. The hand, the range, the siege.
Really?
It's all 36.
Oh, that's funny. That's more attack than our next unit, the Soldado.
This guy loves Soldados so much, dude.
Are you talking about me?
Yeah, the Soldados, I love them.
Oh, okay, yeah. Soldados are fantastic units. They are so good. Mexico doesn't have the craziest amount of upgrade cards for them, which kind of sucks. But they do have one card that turns all of your Saltadors into Soldados, which is pretty crazy.
They almost don't even need upgrade cards, though. Their stats are just so beefy. They do have some upgrades, though. The 3 guarantees church card that you get, I believe the second guarantee gives them It
gives them 15% stats, but it makes them train 40% slower, if I'm not mistaken.
I think 30% slower.
30%.
Maybe.
Yeah, right, because it used to be 20 and 40, but then they lowered it to 15 and 30.
Yeah, but that's no increase to cost, so especially if you get Bustamante, you can just train these guys from field hospitals that you build for free, so it's honestly not that big of a deal if they train slow. You just need to make sure you have them queued. They have the refurbished firearms, which just gives them
a charge attack.
Just a fucking giant grenade launcher, and they just
18-second cooldown, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty high.
Yeah, you can just fast fortress Artiga reforms, get that upgrade for free, and then you have one of the best musketeers in the game super early. Back it up with some falconets. These guys are great.
Yeah, I can't justify putting them any lower than S.
Just with the grenade launcher too, they do so well against skirms. Like, I had a bunch of soldados with grenade launchers, and I just snuck up on some Jaegers, like 10 Jaegers in a nice little ball, and I just killed them all in one volley. It was great.
Alright, now let's talk about the Spanish Soldado. The Spanish Soldado is as good as the Mexican Soldado. It has worse availability, but the stats are way higher. Because you get access to all of Spain's upgrades. It's worse availability because you have to train them from the Haciendas, and you can't do that until you're in H3. But
and after sending a card,
they get 10%.
You have to really invest to get a bunch of them too.
Yeah, you do have to invest. They get 10% extra stats. They also have the Heavy Cuirass upgrade, which normally I wouldn't recommend, but in the Soldado's case, it's like 75 HP.
Yep.
So I would always recommend that one. And then they also have Unction as well. So your Soldados just become stupid powerful, and to a point where it's actually just silly, and you can just overpower. Yeah, they got
Peninsular Guerrillas. I think what is it called, like Corselet or something? That's actually not that big of a deal because they can get that speed back up with military drummers, and then Liberation March, which Spain gets for some reason now.
Yeah.
But I think they can only be trained by the Haciendas. You can't rebuild the Haciendas if you lose them.
It does take up.
If you just get like your Haciendas petarded, then you're just like, oh wow, my main unit that I was making is gone. That's a little.
I've had that exact thing happen before with Byzantonian Emperor, when he saw it was making soldados, and so like he let his ally take the brunt of the assault for a while, and then built 15. I'm not joking, 15 horse artillery, and then ran them into my base and blew up my Haciendas.
Yep, and if that happens, you just can't get these guys back. They're gone for good.
Yeah, and just because of that vulnerability with the Hacienda, despite the fact that I think the Spain Soldados are even better than the Mexican Soldados in stats, I can't justify putting them any lower than like the top of A.
It requires a lot of cards to get them there. You gotta send Unction, you gotta get all your missionaries in, and then even then they still don't get the grenade launchers. Yeah. Or anything like that, so yeah.
Alright, now if I'm not mistaken, we have just one more musketeer to do.
Yep.
And that is the Sentinel. I've been waiting to talk about this guy. I love the Sentinel. I do.
Yep.
Sentinels are the new multi-units, and they are a bit of a divisive unit, because a lot of people will see their base stats as being, the same as this, but then with the pop of this, and then they're like, well, what's the point here? And you have to keep in mind that you don't want to that Soldados basically come with a base level 15% already. So the base stats aren't really this. Their base stats are more like this. But then their stats, their cost is still around this. And then with every single card that you send, the Sentinels get better and better and better and better. The Sentinels are able to go toe-to-toe with Sepoys right in the second age, and they are cheaper as well. The true cost of the Sentinel is their population. But if you just start with Quartermaster and 700 wood, you won't have any issues housing these guys. You don't even have to put anybody on wood for a while. You can just spam houses and even a spare outpost in the middle of the map to give their stats a little boost, and these guys will pretty much beat every musketeer in the game in Age 2, and it's stupid. They have 4.25 base movement speed, but unlike the Ashigaru and the Gascanya, they actually get access to the advanced arsenal, which means that they can get 4.6 something and become the fastest musketeers in the game. And they also, just when you upgrade them, as you go through the game, they are pound for pound just better than every other musketeer unit in the game, stat for stat, except for the Soldado. which obviously doesn't really count because it's its own kind of special breed.
It's just 2 musketeers in a trench coat. Yeah,
exactly. It's 2 musketeers in a trench coat. They have a ridiculous amount of upgradability. I think they're very good units. They do require some card investment. You get into Sentinels what you put into Sentinels. If you invest into Sentinels, then you will get a lot out of them. If you want to make just a couple of units to protect your unit, to protect your other guys from cavalry, you're better off making a hospitaller.
Like I was just doing you really do have to invest in these guys, because I was just doing like a kind of casual game, and I was like, oh wow, my army sucks. I have like half the amount of units everyone else does. But that's because like, oh wow, I didn't send the papal bull for the aura around enemy buildings. That would make them so much better.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly. And then once you have that, you can push into your enemy. Now with these guys,
the other thing is the flintlock rockets as well.
Yeah,
which just make these guys crazy. That does put them like, it's like a 1.5, like it's almost as good as a Soldado, but not quite.
Yeah.
It starts to make them comparable.
I like to refer to these guys I like to refer to these guys. I have a funny saying, and that is that the Sentinel is the Strellet of Soldados, which is just a super silly sentence to say out loud, because all of those units are so opposite to each other. But it also rings very true, because what the Sentinel doesn't have in pop efficiency, it makes up for with resource efficiency. And so very similarly to the Strellet, all you need is to mass these guys a little bit, and then keep pushing and being aggressive on your opponent, because you can just keep making more of these guys and more of these guys and more of these guys, because they're so cheap for their stats.
Yep.
The Flint-Rock Rockets is a 35% upgrade card, or 30% upgrade card. The 35% combined with the 15% upgrade with their 15% aura boost for HP and attack, and on top of all of that, they also have 18 base hand attack, which under their aura is a base of 21 hand attack, which is just ludicrous. Through the use of Advanced Arsenal, if you get both socket bayonet and the one that increases gunpowder attack, you can get their hand attack in just age 2 to be up to 29. They're basically halberdiers with a range attack.
They can also build outposts. Like we're just going to talk about we got to put these guys somewhere. We're going to talk about them all day.
I know, but I think they're a very divisive unit, and I wanted to talk about them extra because like I want to explain why I'm putting them where I'm putting them, which I think they are high A.
The Flintlock Rockets as well. It does make them more expensive, but it's just like the Soldado with their second guarantee. You can just mass these guys and then send the shipment, and then you just get it like. You can just fudge it, like not even have to spend all the resources on it unless you have to remass.
Legit, the only thing holding them back is the wall guns card. If the wall guns card gets fixed, these guys go to S. I think, well, you just don't send wall guns really, but because it's bad. But if they fixed it so that it was good, then they'd be S.
I think that's a fair spot for them. They're not like the best thing ever, but they've got uses where you want to use them, and in those situations they really excel. They've got a very niche
the thing is their niche use is really good, because their niche use is spam these guys and have them be a frontline unit.
Malta's just a hard civ to play, man. You just really have to know what you want to use and when, and like what you're doing with all of your stuff, because you've just got a lot of tools, but then a very limited amount of tools as well. You don't have the 2 falconets yet. Anyway, let's keep going.
And then we missed one, the last musketeer unit, the Tomahawk.
Oh, a secret musketeer. I forgot.
Don't have much to say about these guys. They cost wood, their stats aren't special, they fall off in the late game.
It's basically just a worse Gascanya.
That's basically it.
Which, in age 2 they're alright. They're pretty good actually. Once you get to age 3, you're like, okay, I kind of want to make musket riders and just go skirm goon.
Yeah.
So there's not much reason to make these guys, but they're fine. I think that's a fair spot for them.
There really isn't much to say about them. Not like the Sentinel, which was I'm guessing is going to be one of the more divisive picks and selections. Just based off of what I've seen on the Reddit.
Yeah, because it is. That's just because it's hard to use. If you used it incorrectly, it's gonna like suck.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk about the pikemen equivalents, and then the halberdiers, and then lastly we'll talk about the dop types. How's that sound?
The beefy boys. All right, let's just blast through these pikemen.
Yeah, there aren't many of them. This generic pikeman represents every civilization's pikeman that's not Malta, USA, Sweden, or Spain. D tier. They cost wood, which is nice, but you can't tell me that you would rather have a fucking gunslinger, you know, because at least the gunslinger can attack from range.
People make you still see pikemen a lot though.
You still make them.
They're not good at fighting. They're very good at sieging though. They're very good in a pinch. Most shows have a shipment for them. They're like not a bad unit. They've just got one thing that they do or two things that they do, and you just don't want to make them unless you want to do those things.
Because they're just extremely flail. Like, you can still make pikemen. You know, don't get me wrong. You can make pikemen, and they'll do their job at countering cavalry, but they won't do the best job at it. You know.
Yeah, and they'll fall off obviously, but that's just because they're an archaic unit. I think at least put them in C. They just judge them not by their like overall fighting ability, but just by what they're supposed to do. They're just supposed to be cheap and kill cav and siege trade posts and shrines. That's about it.
I mean, the thing is, they're only cheap if you're making crossbow pike, because if you're making any kind of gold army, then the wood cost is suddenly very expensive.
Yeah, but
the thing is, we have to draw the line somewhere and put some things in D, and that's where I put the pikemen.
Yeah, I feel like there's other we haven't really gotten to all the bad stuff. But I don't know if that's where we want to put them. I think I would put them at least C tier.
Well, I'm going to put them in B. Likewise, I'm also putting the USA ones in B. Well, now, yeah. USA can make their pikemen have decent stats. They have the 10% boost, if I'm not mistaken. They also cost coin, which is pretty nice. They only cost 25 food, 25 coin apiece. The problem is you can only call them like once every 3 minutes. That's really the issue.
Yeah, they've got the same thing as the normal pikemen, where it's here's about how I'm going to phrase this. A lot of times you need to make them. You never really want to make pikemen.
Exactly.
You're never like in a space where you're like, oh yes, I'm going to make pikemen, unless you're like doing some kind of crazy pike bow rush, it's like Malta or something. You're like, oh yeah, I'm going to make pikemen, and then everything's going to fall together. It's just, oh, I'm getting rated by 3 stars. I need some pikemen.
Yeah. The USA's pikeman does have some niche uses for some builds. It can provide some nice heavy infantry to complement your like very skirm focused roster as USA sometimes. And then there's also the use of the PBFI, the Polar Bear Fast Industrial. It's on my channel, but
the classic strategy everyone uses. Okay. But they're decent. I think they mostly see play because USA is really bad against Cavs. Yes. So any opportunity to just... Well, I don't know. That's part of the reason I think pikemen should be higher, too, because when you're USA, you really miss having pikemen. Like, you don't appreciate these guys until they're gone.
I don't know. I just make regulars.
All right.
But, yeah.
What do we got next?
Let's do the Swedish pikemen, yeah.
There's nothing about these guys that throw me. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but it's just that they get Royal Guard upgrades and like...
Yeah, they have Royal...
upgraded H3 and 4.
Yeah, that's exactly it. They can be upgraded more. And they
you get push of pike, which makes them faster.
The problem is they're outclassed by the existence of the Carolean.
Yeah, no one ever makes... But back when Sweden just had pikemen and Caroleans, it was really strange because it was just like you got 2 options and one of them seems just infinitely better.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but they still got Royal Guards, so I thought I'd put them here just to separate.
There are 2 purposes of early siege and killing cav. They just get one of those outclassed right out the gate with Sweden.
All right, now let's talk about the good pikemen.
Yep.
Spanish pikemen are pretty solid.
Yep, these are basically some of the only pikemen that you want to be building in like Age 4, just because Spain has like 3 or 4
Three upgrades.
archaic infantry cards. They've got you can even use them at age 2. You get some bonuses to doing that. You can send the Reconquista to get conquistadors after they all inevitably die because they suck. But yeah, these are really solid. They get the Royal Guard. They get guard upgrades in general. They can do a lot of stuff with pikemen. Archaic units are pretty viable with Spain, honestly.
Yeah, I'm still probably gonna put them at the top of C tier, because generally archaic units aren't what you want to make, but I do recognize that these guys are good and they are serviceable. They're just you should just in most cases you're gonna want the musketeer instead.
Yeah, if you invest into these guys and you go late game and you have all the upgrade cards and you have the train speed cards, then you can just really do some damage with pike bow as Spain.
Mm-hmm. All right, now Malta's pikeman is better than Spain's pikeman. They have all of the same upgrade cards. They don't have unction, but they have all 3 of the archaic cards that Spain has. And then they also have the Malta HP bonus. And then instead of having Royal Guard pikemen, they get paired with the Royal Guard arbalist, which is way better of a deal for them.
I think they still can get the guard pikemen with the papal.
Yeah, they don't get Royal Guard, but they can get Guard and Imperial pikemen. In fact, if you send the Hospitality card and then age up with the Papal Guard, their Guard upgrade becomes completely free.
Oh, I see.
Which is pretty cool. Because it only costs 50 wood and 50 coin to upgrade them to vet status, and then it's free to get them to Guard status. They're really nice. You can make these all the way through Imperial. They would be the only pikeman I would ever consider putting in the B tier, but I still don't want to because it's a pikeman.
Okay, just put it above the Spanish one then.
I'm going to put them at the very tip-top of C, though.
Honorable mention to the Italian pikemen, though, for Roman tactics, but other than that, it's not really worth mentioning.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll get to Roman tactics when we talk about the Italian Halberdier, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much, because the halbs are way more valuable. But let's finish it off with, I figure I can put the Malta in the bottom of B, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I do make a lot of these guys. The pike bow rushes, Malta's really good, because you can build, 2 barracks for the price of 1, and then pull your troops back and heal at them, so it's pretty good.
Alright, Aztec's Puma Spearmen. In Age 2, Pumas are, the best pikes in the game. Because they have just slightly more HP than the other pikemen, and then they have 50% more attack compared to a normal pikeman. They have 12 attack compared to 8, but unlike other things that have higher attack, they still maintain a 5 times multiplier against cavalry. So these Pumas do 60 damage a hit to cavalry, which is just insane.
So crazy. And then they have 40 plus siege.
Yeah, they have 41 base siege as their siege. They have the highest siege as well.
Everything a pikeman does, these guys just do better.
Exactly. The primary downfall of the Puma Spearmen is that once you leave Age 2, there's no reason to make them, because you can just make the Eagle Runner instead to counter cavalry, and then counter everything else in the game as well. Additionally, their upgrade card gives them +1 movement speed to go from 5 to 6, which is good, but, they really need some extra stats, because they don't have any combat cards.
These are an excellent unit, though, in
They
Age
are
2.
an excellent unit in Age 2. I'm going to put them,
you gotta put them above the Maltese Spearmen, at least. Because would you rather have Maltese Spearmen or Puma Spearmen? Be honest with yourself.
Malta. Because the Malta Spearmen
if you were
costs...
playing Malta and someone said, hey, would you rather be able to train Puma Spearmen as Malta?
Well, if I got to keep all my same upgrade cards, yes, but you also have to keep in mind that while generally costing food wood is a bad thing, the fact that these guys compare with the arbalists makes their food wood cost suddenly good. But these guys cost food coin, which is which kind of makes them hard to pair with the rest of the war hut units, which do cost food wood.
All right, you can also just ship them, and these are very deadly in a rush as well.
Yeah, they are.
Can just siege.
They do siege so well. I like to make 5 of these guys, so I'm fighting Brits, and just run around with my Explorer and siege everything. Because if you take down the manor houses with the Explorer, and you have the Community Plaza Big Button that only costs 150 resources, you get 243 XP per manor house you kill. I call it manor booming with Aztecs. Super good.
Go ahead and do the plumed spearmen, I guess, or the pluma spearmen, because it's basically the same unit.
Yeah, plume spearmen are borderline halberdiers. They have worse multipliers against cavalry compared to the puma, but they have much higher HP. They have 190 base HP.
Yep, they've got the same high siege, basically. I think a little less. Maybe got nerfed a tiny bit. But
they have 34 siege. They used to have like the same siege, but they got nerfed.
But still really good siege, though. They're solid enough to just fight on their own with some jungle bowmen to back them up. They're really solid unit.
Yeah, these unlike the plumed spearmen, which kind of falls off, these guys stay good throughout the third age as well. I think they fall off starting in the fourth age. You know, unlike these guys who stay good in every age. But
do you not think that pumas and plumed spearmen are better than tomahawks, though? Because I feel like they definitely are.
I would definitely say they're better than tomahawks. Let's put the tomahawk down here.
I just think that they're better than the Malta spearmen. I don't know.
The Malta spearman is so nice. I think the plume spearman is
nice, but
I think the plume spearman. I think you're right in that the plume spearman is probably better than the Malta one. Just because, unlike the puma, the plume spearman does pair well with another food wood costing unit in the form of jungle bowman. You're right about that one.
And then they also get some crazy upgrades. They can stealth. I'm pretty sure they can.
I don't think they can stealth. That's Chimaros and jungle bows. Chimaros and jungle bows can, but not.
I think it's all their war hut units that can stealth after you send the
Cloud
Warriors or whatever it's called.
It's just I used to play Inca for quite a bit.
I'll just check. You go on to the next thing.
Okay. The Quang Pikemen. Quang Pikemen are basically one of only two sources of good siege for Age 2 China, being the Pikeman and the Step Rider. Step Rider actually has really high siege for a one-pop cavalry unit. Quang Pikemen are a necessity in Age 2 China play, just because your Chukunu have 3 siege. It's silly.
Literally a necessity. You can't help but train these guys because they just come with your other units.
Yeah. It's very true. Yeah, Quang Pikemen are a necessity. They are a pretty serviceable Pikeman unit. They're still a Pike unit, but because of the necessity, I will put them in the C instead of the T tier. So yeah, I think
also
right here.
A thing to note is the I think new army reforms or old Han reforms, I believe.
They do have a couple upgrade cards as well.
That makes them. It's kind of like Spain in a way, where if you invest in them, then archaic units can be really, really good as China.
Yeah, you can just make pure arcane units. I think putting them next to the Spain Pikemen is very fair.
That makes sense. They're very comparable in my eyes.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Chang Dao. Now, both the Quang Pikemen and the Chang Dao are hurt by the fact that they are attached to China's shitty banner army system.
Yep.
Which everybody is like, oh, well, you can learn to play around the banner army system. Like, yeah, but wouldn't it be so much better if it wasn't there at all? And the units were just cheap? You know? The Chang Dao is it's attached to a better unit, which I think just boosts it above. It's like a Halberdier, whereas the Quang Pikeman is, a pikeman.
Yeah.
And Halberdiers are pretty decent. They're not the greatest, but they got some uses to them. So I'm gonna put them here.
I think it's not an excellent unit, but
it's not an excellent unit, no. But it does its job, and it's paired with arquebusers, which I think boosted quite a bit.
Yeah, that's just a weird thing about judging Chinese military, though. Is like, do you judge it on its own or by the banner army?
I mean, you kind of have to do it by the banner army,
I suppose so.
One of my least favorite things about China is that there's no like arquebus or Keshik banner army. Because that would be really, really good, because you could get like a Sturm Goon banner army, but no, they don't let you.
Yep.
And I think that hurts them a little bit.
What do we got?
Club Warriors.
These guys are pretty good.
You play more Lakota than I do, I think.
Not by much, probably. But they're just basically pikemen.
I've never played a game.
You don't often want to make these guys, because you even get bow riders in Age 2, so it's like, what's the point? They siege very well, though. If you want to rush with them, then they'll do pretty decent. If you want to invest into infantry in the late game with some of that, with that OP card that gives you all the upgrades like everyone's talking about, and new card that gives them extra siege, they're not bad if you really want to invest in infantry, but they're not great either.
Mm-hmm.
They're pretty comparable to just a normal pikeman in a lot of ways, but I believe they do have a lot better of a base melee attack.
They I think they have 12, but they have a worse multiplier, unlike the Puma. They are pretty solid. You can make them if you want to make a club rush. And then they recently got buffed just a little bit by the 7 fires, the 7 council fires card that Lakota has, which is just busted as all hell at the moment.
Yep, as well as the extra siege they can get. I believe they can actually get a lot of extra siege, but it's an age 3 card, so it's kind of past the point where you're rushing with them.
Mm-hmm. Which, at that point, you're probably not going to be making Club Warriors for anti-cav, because you have like 3 better options for anti-cav.
11 hand attack with a 4 times multiplier as opposed to 8 with a 5 times.
Yeah. So I think they're serviceable. You can do a pretty good pike rush with them.
They're better than most pikemen.
You can do a good pike rush with with France though as well, and we still have the pikemen in the D tier. I am kind of inclined to put them at the top of D tier, just because they are so useless once you get the economy to get your other units.
Perhaps.
Like, even having a high siege doesn't really matter when Lakota has their siege dance, which was nerfed, but doesn't mean it's not good still,
It's still pretty good. It's just not you don't have to rely on it as much.
Yeah. You don't have the LOL ability to give your settlers 79 siege,
Alrighty.
I don't think there's too many piggies left. Let's talk about the Insurgente. I like these guys. These guys are good.
These guys are very good.
They're stupid
they drop
cheap.
Off still.
Yeah, they do drop
stupid
off.
cheap. They train in batches of 10.
That's
they
a
only
huge
cost
bonus.
food.
Yeah.
They don't have a high siege damage, but they have a double rate of fire with their torches.
Which basically means they have high siege damage.
Yep. I think it still comes out to not as much as a pikeman, but it's still not bad, especially considering how many of these guys you can get.
It comes out to 24, but when you can train these guys in batches of 10 and they only cost 65 food, that's stupid good.
Yep, you can get a ton of them from a shipment in age 4. That's like 33 of them. Get a bunch from a age 2 shipment. Get these guys out early.
I've had a game where it was a team game with Russia and Mexico. And they both built a forward base, and then Russia spammed Strelets, and then Mexico spammed Insurgente. Nobody could win. Nobody could do anything. They just rolled over everything because there's so many of them. I think they're better than the Multipike for sure. Even though the Multipike is useful for every age, and the Insurgente is not, the Insurgente is so useful in age 2 and even early age 3 to a degree that it justifies putting them in the B tier.
Their guard upgrades are locked behind the Yucatan revolt.
Mm-hmm.
You can even, because Mexico can FI so well, you can even use them in early industrial. Just send 33 of them and then vet upgrade them, and then that's a pretty good little mass. But yeah, you can get the Reservistas to give them a weak musket attack, but that's nothing really to write home about. You can make them faster. You can give them poison damage with a revolt. You can do a million things because it's Mexico, but very decent unit. Very, very good. Definitely better than all the pikemen, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Except maybe the Plume Spearmen. I think that about does it for the pickies. Let's do
Rajput.
Let's do rods.
That's the last pike.
Well, I consider Rajput more like Rodolleros, because they're just about as fast, and they serve a similar purpose.
Alrighty.
But let's talk about the jungle, the Jaguar Prowler Knight. I think that we might as well talk. There's not a really good spot to talk about Jaguar Prowler Knight in general, so we might as well make one.
Mm-hmm.
Jaguars are weird. Jaguars are really weird. They're 90 food and 20 coin, 30 coins, so the same price as a Sepoy, which is a little rough when you're not India and don't have India's economy and you have Aztec's economy. but you know, they're still not as expensive as like the they're not as expensive as like Arrow Knights or what are they, Eagle Runner Knights, but they're not as good as Arrow Knights or Eagle Runner Knights are either. So Jaguar Prowler Knights are a weird unit. They're a heavy infantry that has a higher that has a high hand attack of 16, the base ability to go stealth, and then they have a higher multiplier against heavy infantry than they do cavalry. They have a 2 times with cavalry for 32 hand attack against cavalry, and then they have a 3 times versus heavy infantry for a 48 damage against heavy infantry at melee, which means their job is actually to counter every other unit on this tier list. But they don't even really do a good job of that, because although they can stealth and get into melee, they also just get shot by musketeers. And then
you kind of have to be smart about these guys.
They also
that stealth.
lose in melee.
I have seen these guys get like, I have seen these guys really dominate if you can get them in close and just snare, and then they'll just kill shit. They've got a very high siege as well. They're very fast.
They have a good siege, but I wouldn't say their siege is crazy. You know, I think both Arrow Knights and the Plume Spearmen are much better for siege than the Jaguar Prowlers. They just have good siege. They have really good siege.
Really? They have 36. Why do I think they have higher? It's decent.
Yeah, it is very good siege. It's more than most pikemen, but not more than the Plume Spearmen, because the Plume Spearman is excellent. But yeah, these guys, you want to make them because you're like, oh man, I can just like surround this guy's musketeer mass and then like kill his whole army, and we're in age 3, so it's like, you know, 18 minutes into the game. The problem is that guy's mass is 50 musketeers, and so no matter how well you surround him, he's always going to have dudes in the middle that can just shoot. And so your Jaguar Prowlers will just die anyways. They have a lot of upgradability. They have 3 Knight combat cards, and then their support card also gives them another 20%. So they get 50% boost in cards, basically an extra Imperial upgrade.
Yep.
But it just doesn't feel worth it. They were a lot better before their nerf. They had a change where that lowered their costs, but also lowered their stats, and I think that really hurt them, because before that they were a legitimate threat, but it is not really the case anymore.
I believe that gave them more speed too, that change.
No, I don't think that changed their speed at all. They've always been pretty fast.
Speaking of which, the Rajputs, I looked it up, they actually have 5.5, while the Rodoleros have 6 movement speed.
Yeah, that's why I said almost as fast.
Yeah, so the Rodoleros are just a class of their own.
Yeah, they are. But I want to talk about them as a pair, because there is something that they share that I want to talk about. But yeah, where would you put the Jaguar Prowler Knight? Because I'm thinking like mid-C.
B tier, maybe?
B tier, you think?
Yeah, maybe low B tier. I don't know. You can put them in high C.
I wouldn't put them in this. Unit. I wouldn't put them in the same place as all of these units, because they're also restricted to age 3 without a card.
True. You can. If you do send that card, then you can rush them out in age 2, and they do pretty well.
Yeah, you can make a Jaguar Prowler Knight rush, and it's actually really fun to do. Especially because the card that you send to buff these guys buffs your Explorer, so then if you age up with the Chief, you can have this super jacked age 2 Explorer that's able to swashbuckler and actually have it one-shot units in the second age. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, I think top of C, probably.
Top of C? Okay. They are versatile in that they counter more than one unit, which I will say that. But you're not gonna beat a musketeer mass with these. You're gonna like beat other pikemen masses with these, you know. They'll shred other pikemen masses. Like, this is like the antithesis to pikebow rushes. Hello, Dap, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, cool. Just went dark on me for a second. Okay, Rajput and Rodolero. I consider these guys pretty much the same, because although Rajputs are slightly slower than Rods, they're both a fast-moving pikemen. They're both a fast-moving pikemen with relatively low siege compared to other pikemen. But specifically, their fast movement speed allows them to keep up with Eagle Runner Knights. Gurkha and Rodoleros are like they're the only units that can keep up with eagles in movement speed, because the eagles will have to turn and burn to fire, which will allow these guys to catch up. Now, Gurkha can't quite do it as well as rods because they are slightly slower, so a very, very cautious and micro-intensive Aztec player will get away from you, but Rodoleros are like the #1 biggest threat on the board to Eagle Runner Knights, and if you see a Spain player, you better pray to God that he doesn't know that.
Yep. These guys are awesome, though. I love the Rodoleros. They're even faster than the Insurgentes, even though they're wearing armor. But they just, because they're so fast, that just opens up a whole new world of opportunities for them. They can counter cav a lot more effectively. They can get right on top of units they wouldn't normally be able to fight effectively.
Like even goons to some extent, because their 6 speed is less than 7.25, yep. But it's fast enough that you can catch them unawares.
Yep, and they're going to perform a lot better against skirmishers than a pikeman normally would. They're going to be able to get right on top and snare, at least in big. And obviously, like in big groups, that's not really going to be enough. They're just going to get shot to pieces, but they're going to perform a lot better than pikemen in combat in general, just because they've got that higher attack and a way higher speed.
But once they get into melee, they also have a 40% melee resist, which is really, really nice. And they also benefit from all of Spain's archaic combat cards. So Rodoleros, like if I have a Spain player and he says I want to make Rodoleros, go for it. I'm here for it. Just make them. Just spam the shit out of them. Gurkha are not as good as Rodoleros. They're worse in just about every way. But I wanted to talk about them together because they are the two biggest threats to Eagle Runner Knights. So if you are fighting somebody who's spamming Eagle Runner Knights and you happen to have an India or Spain player, consider the Gurkha. That's what I want to talk about. But yeah, I think the rods are high B or low
A. I think low A. I really like these guys.
Yeah. Okay, let's put them in low A then. And then the Rajaput is obviously not as good. Have I been calling them Gurkha this whole time?
Yes, you have.
Okay.
I would put them D tier if there's any.
Yeah. Okay.
Like.
Just because they're so heavily outclassed by Sepoy.
Yeah, you just never see people make them ever.
I have, literally in the tournament actually, the previous 2v2 tournament in our server, me and Chase were playing a game, and I was doing exactly what I was talking about, where I was making Eagle Runners, and I think it was Bicentennial Emperor again, just to do with the weird strats. Who just made like batch after batch after batch of like 50 Gurkha and just ran them into my Eagle Runners over and over and over again. And he eventually switched it to elephants, I think. But that was a really rough game.
Yeah, so they've got their uses. They can still serve as a pikeman in a pinch, but I think they're even they're just not very useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the Halberdier types, eh?
Sure.
Let's talk about the Italy and then the Papal Guard, the Italy Halberdier and the Papal Guard together. Let's talk about the Papal Guard first, I suppose.
Papal Guards, yeah.
Papal
Guards have very high siege. Yeah, that's the first thing that sticks out to me about them.
They have good stats. Their stats aren't quite as good. They are available in Age 2 as opposed to most Halberdiers, which are not available until Age 3. They don't have quite as good baseline stats because of that, but they also just get Shadow Tech upgraded. The biggest problem with the Papal units is that you have to get them from your Basilica, which means that they are competing against every other Papal unit available at the Basilica, things like Papal Lancers, which are probably what you're going to be wanting to be making most of the time. Papal Guard can be good, but you have to pair them with Halberdiers, which is a bit of a resource investment.
It's also, they compete with your regular home city shipments as well, which is what's really inconvenient about them.
Nope.
Yeah, these guys have very good stats. They counter cav pretty well if you're in a pinch and you need some cav countering. They have a charged attack.
It just allows you to pull people in. It's really funny.
These definitely stand out to me as probably the worst Papal unit. Well, maybe the Zouave is worse. I'm not sure.
But the Zouave, I like Zouaves a lot.
Yeah, these guys don't really stand out to me. I'd rather make almost all of the other ones, but it's like any pikeman. You just or any cav countering unit in Age 2. You just, if you need them, you need them.
Mm-hmm. Now, I will say is that if you are making halberdiers, making one batch of Papal Lancers is a really good idea because it will allow you to just deflect the shit out of all the damage over to them and keep your halbmass.
So they do get the deflect like all the other Papal units.
Mm. Yeah, I think they're going to be in D tier just because of their 1 minute train time that competes with your shipments.
Yep. You can get them faster and with a gun if you get the Papal Arsenal, but
their charge attack doesn't actually give them a gun or a ranged or anything. It just gives them the ability to just like yoink people over to you, right?
I gave them a pistol.
Oh, okay. No, they start with a charge ability to yoink people over to you, and then they get a pistol additionally once you get the Papal Arsenal. That's right. Okay. So they get 2 charge attacks, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, and then they're not bad. They're just they don't really stand out as a very good Papal unit.
Mm-hmm. What I will say is that they're S-class in style.
They're very stylish.
They got good fashion.
Okay, let's blow through. Oh my goodness.
The Mexican halberdier is
Mexican halberdier.
So the Italian halberdier. I'm sorry, their flags look so similar. That's actually a joke I made. That's actually a joke I made when Italy came out.
It's like, whoa, Mexico again.
Oh, you saw that video?
No, I just assumed.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I did for my Italy release video. It's like, it's Mexico again. It's Mexico too. Apparently, I had some people in the comments say they actually believed me for a second too.
Yeah, but these guys are just such a nothing burger. I can't. Apart from the
they're
Roman tactics. Why make these?
Yeah, exactly.
Halberdiers are kind of lackluster in general, and these don't really have anything unique about them. So, but yeah, this, along with the pikemen, they do make up a fairly decent comp with Roman tactics. That's kind of... I will
say I think they're a lot better than some of the other halberdiers just because they have a combat card for their hand attack, which is really nice when they have 20 base hand attack, you know? And then it's also going to be necessary to defend some of your cannons later on. I think if there was a halberdier to put in C tier, it would be this one.
Yeah, it's probably... I forgot about Chavone's steel, but I think just halberdiers in general aren't that impressive most of the time. But
and then you can also pair them with the Papal card, which gives them another boost. Which I think that if there was a halberdier put in C, it would be Italians. Now, most of the rest of these are going to be in D tier. We'll talk about Dutch separately. I don't think anybody will have any issues with me just doing this.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're just like, you want some siege, and you make halberdiers. They just don't really do a lot. They've got so much competition.
They do
for their job in Age 3.
Now, a commonality between every single civilization we talk about so far with halberdiers is that they all have musketeers. Which, why would you make halberdiers when you can make musketeers? You know, because they just do the job better. That does not go true with our last guy here, which is the Dutch halberdier.
Yes, they have that increased speed.
So Dutch halberdiers don't have another heavy infantry to compete with. They have an Age 1 card that increases their speed, and they have their logistician upgrade gives you one, which is quite nice, and then it also enables them their fully Age 3 stats to be trained in the second age from your barracks. So you can get some pretty good halberdier rushes going with these. They also are Royal Guard units as well. So these, yes, they are. They are Dutch's other Royal Guard unit besides the Reuter. So these guys can even be useful in the endgame for when you need some high siege or just some frontline beef, you know? The Dutch halberdier is probably the only halberdier in the game I would ever consider putting in the B tier. I think they have quite a bit going for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Mostly the speed, but
I think there's another honorable mention. Probably the best halberdiers in the game are from a civilization that can't train halberdiers, the Spanish alabaderos.
Oh, right, the guard ones that you get from the church. Yeah, that should be an honorable mention, yeah.
Critical puzzle piece in the Piroshiki FF. That's probably 9 out of 10 times, actually, if you're just on the ladder, you're probably going to, if you see Halberdiers, it's going to be Spain, honestly, even though they can't train them.
Yeah, that's very true. You see more Spain Halberdiers than Dutch ones. I never thought about that, but that's really funny. And most of the time, when you see dragoons, when you see, this is one of my favorite little details. This has nothing to do with anything. I just funny detail I remembered. Like one of China's best anti-cav options is to get consulate dragoons. But the funny thing is, they get consulate dragoons from Russia, which is like the one civ that they have the consulate alliance for that can't make dragoons.
Mm-hmm.
It's so dumb
because it's the Kalmucks from the church card.
Yeah. All right. Now let's talk about the big beefy boys. They're our last guys to contend with.
Okay.
So the big beefy boys refers to all of the heavy infantry units that are like 2 pop units basically, or 3 in the case of the macemen, that have a big chunk of HP and a big chunk of hand attack with a big chunk of splash. And they exist to be a threat on the board that will kill anything they touch, but struggle to touch anything.
Pretty much. Just if you can pop these on top of something or just get them in close somehow, then they'll absolutely murder anything that even remotely touches them. But just otherwise, they're not going to perform so well.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about the worst of them first. The Maceman. He's bad. Moving on.
Yeah, so it makes me so sad because in terms of just style points, this is maybe one of my favorite units in the entire game. He's got like a mace that's as big as he is. He goes like, ugh, ugh, and he makes people fly around. Yeah. He's just huge. He's fast. He's cool. He's got like a big headdress and a nose ring half the size of his face. They're so cool, but they're so bad. It's just a cuirassier with with like way less speed.
Yeah.
And that's countered by skirmishers. And you have to, I don't know, it's literally the same cost and pop as a cuirassier.
It ain't no way. It ain't no cuirassier.
It's not even remotely comparable.
Yeah.
The best way to use Macemen is honestly just to shove them in your Kalankas and then send Tupac Rebellion and turn them into a different unit entirely.
Yeah, pretty much. That is one of the best use for Macemen, is because when you send the Tupac Rebellion, they turn into light cannons.
Honestly, put them below the Rajput. Screw them.
Yeah, that's fair.
The only thing they're good for is like siege, and even that they have to do it in melee, and you might as well make Caracas for that.
Their best quality is that they turn into a completely different unit. I actually made
for 6,000 resources as well.
Yeah. I actually made a fast Tupac build for India, for Inca, not India. Tupac, straight out of India. Where the idea was to ship Macemen and Chimus over and over while I gathered the resources for the Tupac card. Because then you would get a huge mass of cannons and then like guard hussar. Because Chimus also have a really good transformation because they go from like 1 pop shock infantry units to each of them being a 2 pop cav unit.
Yeah, now that I think about it, these guys are sometimes worth it just to ship from the home city. Because they do have good stats. It's just not worth it to ever train these guys.
You know,
so maybe put them up a little bit, because I think a lot of decks do have just cards to send these.
I know, but like a lot of decks also have cards to send pikemen, and they're available a whole age earlier.
Yeah.
Alright, literally every other big beefy boy is going to be higher ranked.
Yeah. The samurai, I don't think, not by much.
Yeah, the samurai, not by much. That's what I was going to say next. Samurai is C tier. I think he's top of C tier, but he's C tier. And samurai have... they have less splash than everybody else here, but they have a higher attack as well. They have 26 hand attack, or 28 hand attack at base level, which is really good. And they also have an insane level of upgradability, just like all of Japan's units. The big issue with samurai is that they are so heavily and hilariously outclassed by the Ashigaru musketeer.
Yep.
Now, if you are in a team game and you purely want a unit that can shred cavalry in seconds and has high siege to protect like puppy guard, protect somebody who has a crazy good unit that's weak to cavalry, then yeah, you can make samurai. You know, I've had a 2v2 game where me and my buddy did samurai fire throwers as a unit combo together, and it worked really, really well. And then we did the same thing with DOPS, and it worked even better.
That's hilarious.
It's a really funny unit comp, especially as like an Age 2 rush that works stupid well throughout the entire game. But it is niche.
I've seen a game where an insurgente rush gets completely countered by like 2 samurai because they just can kill like an infinite amount of insurgentes by themselves.
I want to see that.
Pretty funny to watch. Yeah, they've just got such better stats and this like AOE that like no amount of insurgentes can kill them. So you can just stop an insurgente rush in its tracks with them, basically.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to note about them is that they've got incredible siege, just a really high siege attack.
They do. That's something that's true for every single one of these big beefy boys. So that they all have really good siege.
Mm-hmm. But it's just maybe it's not that bad, but
they have Onin War. They have an Onin War, which is a card that basically just boosts their siege.
Yeah. Considering every other Japanese unit pretty much is S tier,
yeah,
they just look so bad by comparison.
They do. Now, I want to quickly get the Skull Knight out of the way. I love the Skull Knight. Skull Knights are like my baby. I love like playing Azzies and then doing the fast industrial and spamming Skull Knights with 10 warrior priests and 15 villagers. It's really funny. You can get these guys stupid quick. These have just the most ludicrous stats you've ever seen, but then they have like higher stats than the Maceman, but then they still maintain the only 2 pot cost of everybody else.
Yep. And then they have their spin to win.
Yeah, they have the spin to win charge attack. Yep.
Very powerful. You can mass these a lot better. These are just better Macemen.
The issue with them is that they are the only one of these units that has a base speed of 4 instead of 4.5. And they have an upgrade card that delivers, I think, 11 of them in Age 4, and then boosts their splash, which is really funny. It goes from 2 to 3, and then their charge attack goes from 4 to 5. But it boosts their splash, and then it boosts their movement speed, but it still only boosts their movement speed from 4 to 4.25, which is like the same as the Halberdier. So they still end up slower than every other unit in the big boy category.
Yeah, they're just such a scary unit.
Yeah, if they even remotely touch your army, you're dead.
I forgot the Maceman also attacks more slowly. It's got like a 2 attack speed.
Does it really? I did not know that.
I think so, but that's not a problem the Skull Knight has.
Yeah, it's not. It is definitely not.
I can assure you.
Skull Knights, I'd say, are B tier. They are destructive and just an absolute force of nature, but it requires a lot of investment, and you need to be very careful with where you push with them, because they can get slowly gunned down by a faster skirmisher unit.
Yep.
But they will just shred if they get even remotely in contact with anybody. Okay, the DOP.
Alrighty. Yep.
So Doppelslingers have they're more expensive than Samurai because they're more coin weighted. They cost 75 food, 125 coin. They have more HP. They have 240 HP to the Samurai's 230. And they have more splash. They have 2 splash to the Samurai's 1, but they only have 20 attack to the Samurai's 28. They have less attack than Samurai in every age. They have a lot of upgrade cards. They have like plus 30% in upgrades, and then they also get a speed boost from the German Church card. And then on top of that, they also can Ixnay that speed boost entirely in the 4th age and get an extra Imperial upgrade.
Yep. Worth noting too, you're going to see these a lot more just because where Japan has an S-class unit to compete with its Samurai, Germany has no musketeer, so
that's a very good point.
these are pretty like middle of the pack, kind of gold standard, super heavy infantry.
Exactly. I love it when I have a German teammate who wants to make doppelgangers because I'm like, yes, somebody else knows their greatness. You know, they're great. They're very expensive though.
Mm-hmm. So maybe
feature.
It's better than the samurai.
Yeah, it's definitely better than the samurai. Samurai is in the C tier for sure. I think they're like, I think they're better than the Dutch Halberdier. I don't think they're better than like the Malta Pikeman.
Yeah, if you told me that like, hey Mexico, we're going to take away your insurgentes and give you doppelsoldners, I would like be very upset.
Yeah.
That's so much worse.
Well, also it's just because like you already have a 2-pop heavy calf, heavy infantry. You don't need 2.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Malta.
Just like, are your soldados not like killing cuirassiers in even numbers enough for you? Do you need to like beat cuirassiers like outnumbered 3-1? Like, okay, here you go.
All right, now let's talk about the Hospitaller, our last unit.
I love these guys. Honestly.
I love these guys too. We mentioned that you're going to see Dops a lot more than you're going to see Samurai. You're going to see Hospitallers a lot more than you're going to see Dops.
Yep.
So let's talk about the differences. The Hospitaller has the lower splash of 1 of the Samurai, but he also has the lower attack of the Doppelsoldaten at 20. So he's got the worst damage of the 3. He also has the lowest siege at 45. But he is also the cheapest of the 3 because his 200 resource cost is food weighted at 120 food and 80 coins, so he costs the same as a Hussar. And I happen to know all this off the top of my head because I did a deep dive comparison once between these units, and I never turned it into a video. But I might do that actually. It's a good video idea. They're the cheapest. They are the fastest of the 3, at least at base level, because they have 4.5 just like everybody else, but they have a aura boost that boosts their speed from 4.5 to 5 while they are near friendly buildings. And then with Papal Bull, of course, you can make that be enemy buildings as well. And then on top of that, they also are the tankiest because they have the highest base HP of 250, meaning that they also get plus 5 HP for every card you send. So by the time you even start making one, they probably have close to 275 HP. And then they, of course, have their combat card. And yeah, these guys are just tanky as fuck. And then the last thing of note about these guys is that they are the only unit in the game that is trainable just through a normal barracks that has the deflection aura. And the deflection aura is stupid good. You can see my video about how the deflection aura deep dive. But you can just park these guys behind a mass of other units, and your entire mass will take 25% less damage. And it's just fantastic.
It is really good to mix these guys in with whatever you're making. Yeah, the deflection's awesome. They've got some really good upgrades. They've got the Sovereign Order of Malta upgrade. They've got the Papal Bull, obviously.
And then Dignitaries. That's the last one.
Yeah, Dignitaries. Teutonic Order, if you feel like tanking them up.
Which I don't really consider to be that great.
Yeah, you can get a lot of these actually from shipments. They've got a lot of regular shipments for them. There's at 4 and 5, and then in H4, I think they have even more Hospitaller shipments, and then every Knights of Blank card. I believe there's like 3 of them.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of
that. Knights of something I can't pronounce. Gives you for outposts.
There are 4
Knights of Malta for forts, and Knights of Rhodes for commanderies.
Yeah, it's Knights of the Round Table for Age 1. It gives you 1 for each town center.
That as well. I'll give you 1 to all your teammates as well.
Now, normally that's a useless card. It's really good, however, if you are slinging an ally, because it allows you to have some military, and then it gives them a little extra push in their, 3-minute rush,
Yeah, there's definitely room to explore it. It's kind of
and they have Knights
under
of
the radar, though.
Knights of Bodrum was the one you were thinking of for outposts. you can get up to just up to a casual 14-unit shipment. Just no biggie.
With a big investment. Knights of Rhodes is my favorite, just because you can get the free commanderies with commandery cards. You can.
Yep.
Then that can increase your build limit. Commanderies are really good. You want to be making them anyway. You can just get a lot of them. And Knights of Malta also gives you perforts. You just got a lot of ways to get these guys.
I made a whole Reddit post about it, but the absolute maximum number of hospitallers you can get is actually with the Knights of Rhodes on a map with the Somalian natives. If you send every single, this is completely impractical in the real game sense, but if you send every single tongue shipment and then you ally with the Somalians and then research the tech that gives you +4 to your frontier fortification build limit, you can have 14 commanderies and you get a shipment of 42 hospitallers.
Which is crazy. And you can still get a lot even without doing all that craziness, just if you build up to the maximum and send some other commandery cards. Then even there's Knights of the Hospital at the church.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So you've got a lot of ways to get these guys.
Yeah, you
that's
can
not
get
even a shipment either. That's like a
well, it's part of a shipment. It's part of the Papal Bull.
Yeah, but you don't. The point is, it's a tech to get the units themselves, so you can use it to overpop.
Yeah, you can. It's a great tech. And then lastly, I want to talk about Knights of Malta, because even though Knights of Rhodes is probably the best one, Knights of Malta is probably the one I use the most, because I made the Malta Fast Industrial, I call it Malta Fast Top Hats, where you go to the Industrial Age and build 4 forts, and then send Knights of Malta for 20 hospitallers that are carded in Age 4.
Okay. Alrighty, so let's get straight to the point. Where are we putting them?
Oh, and
we've talked about them for like 20 minutes.
I know, but dignitaries. They're the only ones that can get range resistance, which further boosts their super tankiness compared to every other one of these units. Okay, that's it. They also have the charge attack, but it's not worth noting because it has a cooldown of an entire minute. A tier.
Okay. I think if any of them deserve. Yeah. Oh, whoa! You're really gaining ground there. Slow down there, buddy.
Because guys, you only need to make 2 of them, and your whole army gets extra resistance. It's so good. It's so good.
It's so hard to justify putting them next to all these other units, though.
I definitely think
below the Rodolero, I would say, but they're
below the Rod. No.
All right, it's your list.
I'm gonna put
the Portuguese musketeer is starting to look kind of out of place here. So I think he needs a little demotion.
You think he needs a little bit of a what?
The Portuguese musketeer is kind of starting to look out of place on this tier.
You think he needs to be
all these other really good units? Yeah, I don't know.
Lower a little bit.
I mean, they're still pretty good. They're kind of underrated.
I feel like looking at this, the regular could be put into S tier just because he's got the Gatling gun to pair him with.
Yeah, I just don't think he crosses that threshold because I wouldn't consider him on the same tier as all those other ones.
But like he has almost identical stats to the British Musketeer, but he has extra range.
Well, then I would bring the British Musketeer down then, if anything.
But the British Musketeer pairs so well with the rockets and the Hussar, though.
Tier list.
I'm putting them.
If you want to put the regular in S tier, you can.
Bottom of S tier. Yeah, I think this looks good as a list.
Yeah, pretty balanced. I still think these poor like pikemen. You're very very unfair to the working class. Like clock in every day 9 to 5 to chase off Uhlans. Like they're really underappreciated.
And the Quattrero is gonna be D tier. Yep. He's the
terrible heavy cat.
Terrible heavy infantry units. Alright, well, that's it. Thank you guys very much for watching. This was a lot of fun. Thank you, Dap, for joining me on this tier list. This is probably going to be the most divisive of my tier lists by far.
Yeah.
I think the S-Class looks pretty solid, though. I think everything. Right. I think every single musketeer there is a foot above every single musketeer in A tier.
Well, I'm already disagreeing with you on like half of these, so it's already pretty divisive.
Yeah, I was expecting that. What are some changes you would like to make?
I think let's cut it off here. Long video already. I think
Okay.
we've got everything where it's gonna end up.
Okay. Are you sure you don't have any changes that you like really want to make? Because I'll listen.
I'm good.
Okay. Have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. Dap is really tired. Goodbye. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. This was, as ever, a ton of fun to make. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider subscribing. It really helps the channel out. And have a great day.